Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Sacred Matrix. And I'm your host, Jenna Lessin. My co-host, Dr. Sasha Lessin, and our producer is Thomas Becker, also known as a Mad Painter. And you're listening to Revolution Radio, Studio B. Our guest today is Kenneth Hopkins, and he was with us about a year and a half ago, so he's been doing a lot of things. We want to get him back on to catch up on his research and what he's doing. He's written a book. It's down low. Let me go and file first before I come down there. Hold on, my computer's acting weird. I put a page up on Kenneth on QuarianRadio.com. So he's talking about his experiences. It started back as far back as he could remember. What I had thought of his dreams, I found to be abductions. First came experiences with Greys, then later Nordics. From 75 through 77, I would have blackouts, always with my girlfriend. And then later I came to understand it was called missing time experiences. And so with the help of hypnosis, he became to understand these experiences. And later I would come to understand the abductions with the Nordics, who I continue to have involvement with. So here's something that's very important. Recently, Ken was infected with the coronavirus by COVID. In a hospital-like setting, they handed him a mask, and when he finished with the mask, he was infected. And this was, he said, many procedures had been done to us in their hospital-like setting. In anger, I asked why, and they answered that the virus would become a worldwide epidemic. And that was early on. I will get into what year that was. I will mark that on this. Okay, Sasha, November of 2019. That's right. We talked about that earlier. I got to mark that in this show so we have that historical reference. Sasha, what would you like to say?
Oh, I just want to hear more about what you were just talking about what are the intentions of your contacts with this virus, both, not just all the different extraterrestrials that are in contact with you. What are they telling you? What message are you getting about this virus?
Yeah, and I want to know, okay, let's unpack this episode in November of 2019 when you got infected by the coronavirus.
Yeah.
How did you get to this hospital-like setting? Was this like from your sleep? You driving down the road? What happened?
No, everything is done at night when we go to sleep. And so after we fall asleep, they take us and teleport us, and we end up wherever we end up. And a lot of times I don't know where we are, and I'm just starting to ask people where I end up, where I am. And they'll tell me the state I'm in, they'll tell me the town I'm in, and so I'm just starting to figure that out now. So growing up, we were always having procedures done to us in this particular hospital-like building. I don't know how to fully...
Who's we?
I and another abductee have been involved in a lot of the same things. We've even been together in our abductions. And she's been a close contact friend that I met. And so we seem to have similar people, beings, buildings, and many times we've been standing in these recovery rooms watching patients being brought into this large room. Other times when they do procedures on us, most of the time I end up in a small room after they're done. Of course, they take us when we're asleep. And so the only thing I remember is recovery when I come out of a recovery room in this hospital-like building.
Do you see beings, or are these labs?
These are the Nordics.
The Nordics, okay.
And I don't know.
Like?
Oh, go ahead.
What do the Nordics look like? The ones that you see. What do your Nordics look like?
And what are they wearing, if anything?
Yeah.
They, where I'm now visiting them is on Earth. It's not in ships anymore. So they wear a lot of the clothing we wear. They're dark-skinned. They're multicolored, brunette, blonde, large portion blonde, blue eyes. And they're usually fairly attractive. And I don't know, other than looking like us. And I just came across recently under hypnosis that they were the Nordics. So I'm,
How do they communicate? How do they communicate with each other? How do they communicate with you and they and each other?
In the daytime, there could be telepathic communication with them. If I put a question out or something, at night, the ones I'm with, they speak. They also sometimes do both, speak and telepathic at the same time. They speak English fairly fluently. They seem to have what I kind of call the American accent, at least the ones that I've been with. I've been in houses that seem to be in normal American household areas, and I've been told where I am when I ask them. So I feel when I was young, I was on ships. Now I'm in communities with them.
Is there a pattern to the communities that you found out about?
All I know is I end up in a house or I end up on a street when I'm teleported, and then I'm introduced to people. They introduce, some of them know my name. They usually are expecting me. I have no expectations. I never know when I'm going to be taken.
And they're giving you a location, like a city and state?
In one that was less than a year ago, the woman told me, she said, "You're in Missouri." Another one, she identified us as being in China. That was quite a few years ago. So I'm just starting to ask. I'm very overwhelmed in a lot of these settings. And coming out of sleep, you kind of fall into kind of an automatic response to things. And a lot of my experiences I don't have awareness of, but the hypnosis brings them out. And then there's a lot that I'm very conscious in.
It's really useful to tell yourself that you're going to remember what's important for you to remember, and be prepared to bring it back. You know, know in advance that you're going to do that, so you can. It goes like this: could be, if you can frame the question, you already have intuited the answer, and they know it, and and they're waiting for you to know it too. That's the question: what answer do you intuit when you have a question to frame?
When I'm talking to them?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Well, in that Missouri one, we were in an apartment, and there was several women there and a man there, and I just asked, and there was some kittens that were wandering around, and I asked the woman where we were, and she said Missouri. And some of these episodes are longer. Some of these episodes are very short. But sometimes I'm overwhelmed. You don't know where you are. And you're trying to figure it out. You're trying to come up with a perception of what's going on. A lot of times, as I said, they know I'm coming. They introduce themselves. They call me by name. the more recent.
I noticed, because humans need to know where they are, right? They'll often tell me something that might make sense to me. So they'll say things like, "Oh, you're in Australia," or I'm in Europe somewhere, right? And they'll give me somewhere that isn't real familiar, so I buy it at first. Okay, I'm in Australia, and then something happens, and I see something that's otherworldly, and I go to them. This isn't Australia. They have a sense of humor. And they go, "Yeah, you're right. It's not Australia."
That's interesting.
So they're trying to be comfortable with where you are, but humans always want to go, "Where am I? Where am I?" So they're trying to get you to just let go of that, so you can have the experience.
It's very important not to discount the possibility that you're really exactly where they say, so that both things are possible.
I had a telephone call that confirmed a visitation in Chicago.
Fantastic.
So somebody saw you in Chicago?
No, they met me. I was in their home, and they called me by the phone number at this house I'm at now, telling me that my friend had died, which was the father I had been visiting. Mm-hmm. And I was, and a woman connected with me on a visit in Lynn that I had come to her house. I had called her, and she told me that I had been at her house. So I have had confirmations that's two places.
So these are human beings that you're meeting. You're going to a human being's house,
they're human. They're not foreign houses. And so I got some flashback that I was with this man's daughter. And then a flashback of when she was leaving, heading to Russia, and their father had just died, so I didn't want to ask them a lot of questions at the time they called me. So when I called back, they denied ever calling me.
Oh, did your caller ID show their number?
Yeah, and I didn't want to pursue it because too many people have been hurt around me.
Okay.
I didn't want
let's
to.
Go back.
I believe they were debriefed.
Virus infection. Oh, okay. Go ahead. Continue your thread there, but I want to make sure we don't skip this coronavirus infection episode. Okay, continue what you were saying. So you're getting confirmation, but then when you called back, they denied ever calling you.
Yeah, even though he had used my name when he had referred talking to me, he said it was a mix-up. He's sorry about it, and so my impression was they had been debriefed. Also, I believe that may have been a military connection. I believe their father may have been military, but
And you said people have heard around you, and so you've got to be careful.
I ran into the Navy after a series of homicides around my involvement, and with the Department of Defense, and a series of abductions. And people that were in certain places or got information from. It's pretty complicated what happened with the Department of Defense. But that seemed to put me under surveillance, heavy surveillance, what happened after that. I speculated in the book. I put together what I think happened. They put a young MK Ultra to watch me. She's abducted. The Greys become concerned about the implant in her head. And my book goes into a lot of that. But it's a very complicated, and so there was 4 homicides, 3 that of people that I was connected with during that time with the young agent or the young woman. And so I went into the U.S. Navy because I thought somebody was going to kill me. My girlfriends have been pursued, followed, and one poisoned and assaulted. So I walk lightly in some ways another girlfriend went under surveillance, was removed from her apartment after being drugged. So yeah, there's been a lot of stuff happening around the people that have gotten close to me. But that was years ago.
Do you have a girlfriend married, or what's your current situation?
My wife died about 2.5 years ago. So right now I'm getting back to dating, going out with people. And 2 of the people I'm dating are abductees that had involvement with whoever these surveillance people are. And as I said, one was assaulted and both were poisoned. One was poisoned and then removed from her apartment at nighttime. And there's and a woman that got a device from my house became very ill. So I didn't want to put this family in jeopardy for speaking.
Right.
So that's why I didn't.
Now aware that there's potential danger being involved with you?
Both do, and both have been loyal about that. And they're both abductees, of course. So they've been very aware. And we just had a recent sabotaging of vehicles of one of the women, and my cars were sabotaged. Hers in her garage, about $1,000 damage on the tires, and they took all the nuts, or loosened all of the lugs on the rear tires of my car.
So this is a hostile act, not just and it was aimed at you. And who's into it is behind.
And I don't know who these people are. I haven't known who these people are for 40 years. They were white cars when I was stationed in Florida. I went through naval intelligence to report it because we were going for another top secret security clearance. The Navy gave me a choice to leave the Navy if I wanted to, but they gave me no answers. It's kind of a very confusing scenario what happened when I was 22, 23, but I ran into the military because I felt it would end there.
Oh wow! So you're on their shit list.
I'm definitely on a federal watch list. It's in every police department across the country. Police departments have pulled me over, confronted me on the watch list. Several in this area I live in now.
Wow.
So now you said that they infected you with the coronavirus.
Yeah.
That was the Nordics.
And that was the Nordics. So
yeah.
And you know they're.
I'm assuming.
Are you immune now? Are you immune now?
I'm well. 14 weeks was the getting over the worst of it. The final stages was fever, headache, respiratory, severe respiratory, and that was for almost 2 weeks. And now I feel pretty strong, but it has taken me a while, even after the 14 weeks.
It knocked the heck out of you. Wow.
It's the sickest I've ever been in my life.
Wow.
So, what were the symptoms? Of
course, it went into sore throat, heavy nasal discharge, and then pneumonia came pretty quick for me, but I was working through it, ignoring the symptoms. The Motrin I was taking was suppressing the fever. So I had been working 3 weeks with pneumonia before I realized I had pneumonia. So pneumonia had progressed, and then I was out for a period of time, and then pneumonia cleared up. I thought I was well, went back to work, and then back out again. And I infected others around me, and they were younger. And what was interesting, their infection was very quick, 2 and 3 days. not even 2 and 3 days. I think they were out a couple days, and then they were back to work. Same chronic cough, but it seemed like the younger people where I worked, it hit them faster and was gone. My friend had it for 20 weeks. She was infected. She and I are involved in the same group. Our infection was at the same time. She doesn't have memory of the infection with them, but we don't have a lot of memory of some of the stuff we are involved with them in. And so the hypnosis has helped us uncover that. And so there's been a dissociative process involved with alternate consciousnesses or alternate personalities in our experiences.
Kath, let me just tell you, because this really works. If you and she would lie down on your back with your heads together with your hypnotist and go deep together, you will learn incredible things.
Unfortunately, I'm having trouble with hypnotists and government, or them being approached. And the surveillance was heaviest when I was undergoing hypnosis. I've stopped for a while with a recent abduction. I was given information, but with these particular Nordics, when they do classes with us, we don't retain what they give to us in the classes. We don't remember. We remember the encounters before the class, remember the encounters after the class. Well, I had an encounter with this woman, and she was giving me information, but I didn't retain it. And they do that, it seems, purposely. They mute, or I don't know how it's done. We've tried to recover conversations that we had in the abductions, and we've been unable to recover some of them.
So what I'm saying is you don't need an external third person. If you and she would just lie, you both know how to go deep and go into the experience and just relate what you're experiencing when you go into a deep meditative state, and learn more and just give it a try.
Yeah.
You don't need an external person. You two can do it.
Yeah, that's interesting. We've been telling each other our experiences and processing them that way. But yeah, I'll definitely try that. But there's things happening. The cameras are showing activity, and I don't have a clue of what the heck is going on. So I see a need to find out.
What are you catching on the cameras?
What?
Tell us about your cameras and what you're catching on the cameras.
What are they showing you?
Okay, when these force fields or whatever develop, they blow some of the camera equipment that we've been using. So we've been playing with different cameras, but the pictures I showed you are what we were able to get from one camera, and they show a lot of electrical disruption. We're using remote cameras because they seem to get better visuals. We're now going to we got an AC adapter. We can't use batteries in recording these. Batteries explode. They get destroyed. So we have to use AC on all the cameras. So right now I'm using an old camera, 2.3 gigahertz, and I'm going back to the original camera I showed you the pictures from. Because that's the only thing that I've been able to get any kind of recording with. So it's an older Swan security camera. When this electrical disruption occurs, we believe it affects our brains. It makes us feel drugged. It makes, and in all my cases of abduction, there's been a woman in the room at the time of the abduction, and in most cases she's never had a clue of what's happened. The visitors will come in, and she'll sleep solid through it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the electromagnetic frequency. A lot of energy is coming into this room. When you look at that light or that striped picture, well, they're horizontal stripes. That's a very brilliant flash of light. And it'll light up a neighborhood. It'll make a house look like a lantern. And the energy involved in it was identified as plasma teleportation. This energy spontaneously occurs, and when the person is gone, the camera continues to show distortions until the person returns. So we have one camera we're working with now. The other, we got a newer version on the Swan camera, but the camera shuts off to the current, and then when the current is gone, the camera turns back on. So the camera tells us the period where the electrical current is high in the room, but it stops recording. And so I'm trying to get an electrical engineer or somebody to work with that could help me find out the level of what this energy is.
Well, hopefully someone.
Yeah.
Do you have an email I can put on the website? Oh, here it is. HOP53 at Outlook. Is that the one you want to use?
Yeah, that's been pretty good. But yeah, I want to get instrumentation in the room during these teleportations.
Now, you've been taken in this manner, correct?
What? Yeah, we've taken in a couple matters. There's another matter we're taken in which we become two people. In the Bushnell camp, I posted a picture showing two me's in a bed, one getting out of the bed and one remaining in the bed.
Wow.
So we had another video. All our videos were stolen, taken. So we lost most of that work. So I'm redoing a lot of that work. We had another video of a woman in her closet at the same time as being in her bed. So there's a splitting thing that also occurs. And now this is with the particular group I'm with. Every celestial group has its own technologies, and they can differ quite drastically. This may not be the same for all abductees, but it's the same for some of them.
What do you think's happening when they split? Are they taking your astral body and leaving your physical form?
The astral body shouldn't show up on film. Both bodies, if you look at it, he's moving the sheets. So he's affecting the matter. And he's climbing out of the bed. So they both seem to have strong physical. But it seems when the splitting occurs, they could only do certain things with us. They will not let us eat. So I don't think all the body functions are able to function in these split states. And the Bushnell camera showed these splitting states very well. And now that we got an AC adapter, we can prevent them from exploding. When the plasma stuff occurs, it blows the batteries. But now that we can use an AC adapter, we should be able to get more pictures with the Bushnell hunting cam or videos. So we lost a video of a person walking into a wall and walking out of a wall. This was daytime. We lost the video of the woman in the closet and in her bed at the same time. And we lost hundreds of pictures in the last attack. They changed the passwords to the computer. And then everything was wiped off the computer.
Wow. So do you have it set up so things automatically start recording when there's activity?
There's a slight delay. we used the motion detection. And of course, there's going to be a slight day before it kicks in. And so we can't catch, we weren't able to catch the actual person separating from themselves. Because we're trying to figure a way of capturing the person separating. We had 4 volunteers that we were using cameras on. We also discovered that in all the houses of the 4 that we were using the cameras on, there would be an orb in another room. And I have a picture of the orb that's in my laundry room.
So you don't have a way of just leaving it continuous record without having to have it based on activation of motion?
Well, once the person is teleported, the camera goes berserk. Those pictures are just all colors, and the images can't make any. There's nothing you can do with the images. The camera remains that way until the person is returned. So we had one I sent you of me returning and then leaving, and that was an unusual one. So there was a teleportation after a teleportation. So we're redoing all the stuff we lost.
When you have these things happen, do you check them? You check the cameras. Do you have any recollection of these things happening, or do you only recall once you look at the camera? Have you correlated those two things?
The camera correlates. For some reason, been taking me late in the morning, 5 a.m. They used to be closer to 2 a.m. The camera shuts off in the periods of time that I've been removed, and then goes back on when I come back. But when I get the second camera set up, it will record what is happening in the period that the other camera goes off in. So I'm in the process. I had to wait for an adapter to set that up because it's made for an old TV set. But it's an old system.
Yeah, I'm still back there. Why did they? What's the deal? Did these people want us to get the coronavirus? The
Nordics or any of the celestial groups have concern for all of those that are connected to them. So these Nordics had concern on me and my friend and this epidemic. And they thought the best way for our survival through this epidemic was early infection. And that's what they communicated. They've done numerous procedures, from cleansing our blood, running blood through our neck, out our neck. I don't understand the procedures. I believe some of them are removing toxins. I really don't understand the medicines of the Greys or the Nordics. They're much less invasive. It's definitely a much more developed. With the Greys, they're able to freeze and disassemble a person and then reassemble them and unfreeze them. I don't know how they're doing this with time. I witnessed them taking a girl's brain apart. And this is in my first book.
So what were they doing when they were taking her brain apart? What was the reason for that?
They were interested in the implant that was in her head.
Is it a material, physical object?
The MK Ultra Monarch Artichoke projects involved putting implants in children's heads. I have a picture of a child in the book that has this procedure done to her. And they run wires for a period of time to somehow tune this implant. I've interviewed a number of people with these implants. I got heavy into the MK Ultra projects. I found a correlation with the MK Ultra projects and abductees. So the Greys were dealing with, this woman went through a medical emergency several days prior to this 16-hour missing time period. The Greys were curious as to what caused her convulsions. They're the most violent convulsions I've ever witnessed in my life. And so when the Greys took her apart, they saw the implant. They brought me in to observe it, and they had parts of her laid out on the table. Her skulls, the right cerebrum, were all laid out on the table. And then they showed me the implant and asked me telepathically if I knew what it was. So that was the 16-hour missing time. And this girl was with the Department of Defense, the one they were examining.
So was it familiar? Had you seen it before?
No, I didn't. I just started dating this girl. I really didn't.
Was she alive after this experience?
Yes, they reassembled her. I don't know all of what happened in that 16 hours. We were going to the beach at 10 a.m. Next I know, it's 2 a.m. So we were able to get some memory of some of it. The end of us, we were in another place, which I'm not sure. And then we came to in the car, and that 16 hours seemed like a split second. It went from night to day driving a car. I was driving the car when I was taken, and I was driving the car when I was returned. And that's common with the Greys for me.
Okay.
When they take me from a car, it's all I see is a change in the clock.
So I wonder if they're pulling you over. Are you still driving?
I don't know. I haven't
out on the highway?
All I know is I look at the clock and the time is gone. So I don't remember pulling over. I don't. And then when I'm returned, I'm holding the steering wheel, driving. The car is moving.
Oh, wow.
So I can't make any sense out of it. But that's...
Is your locale identical, or has it changed? Are you down the road further or not?
God. In one of them, it seemed like we were in the same place.
Oh.
We're going 1A past the Wenham Lake. A lot of them happened in Wenham, Mass. For me. A lot of those were in Wenham, Mass. So I ignored them because they made no sense to me, and I didn't know how to. At 22 and 23, I didn't know what the fuck am I supposed to do with this blackout. I got hours I don't know what's happened. And the woman that's with me doesn't seem to notice that there's missing time. That's even weirder. So 6 different women were taken from with me in my car.
So do you think that they're directing you to date certain people?
I don't know. The whole thing on predetermination, that everything is set to go in a certain way. They talk about pre-birth agreements. A number of abductees I've talked to remember pre-birth agreements with the Greys. I've heard the Greys and people talk about them giving that explanation, that you agreed to this procedure before your birth. And now I got...
That with our people that we interview as well. That, people are showing up and they're going, I'm a victim, and they're saying, no, you agreed to this, and then they revealed the agreements.
And then I'm hearing women say, mostly women is what I've interviewed. I haven't done too many men. And they're all saying, that, or the ones that I've talked to are saying they remember the pre-birth agreements. A lot of abductees know their past lives. That seems quite common with a lot of them. So I have talked to some that recollect the pre-birth agreements.
So you've started interviewing people, and about how many people have you interviewed?
Probably about 20 something, but I've read probably over 100 and something. But I'm in connection with 10 now, so I intend to continue with more, which I'm hoping the show will help me with, of course. I'm finding abductees intuitive. I'm finding them very friendly, very sharing. I'm finding a lot of familiar personality traits that seem to go with them. Feeling people's intentions, aspects that go towards mind reading. I really haven't. I'm just doing the interviews almost blindly, just seeing what I get right at this point, and then I'll work to reconnect them more at a later point.
Are you recording these interviews?
I got a lot of them on Messenger, and right now, I've been doing a lot on Messenger. I'm with what's going on with the computers and confidentiality issues. I'm trying to find a way. I'm going to have to do information not on computers, and so I'm trying to figure that out now. On assimilating commonalities with the different abductions. There seems to be, as I mentioned, these women are telling me what the Greys are telling them. And so I'm trying to get the information when it's directly communicated or even telepathically communicated. And that's what
are they saying? What are they telling you?
What are they telling? What's it?
Well, one was
yes.
One was explaining how the Greys are overseeing. I'm not sure if she said 7 or 9 different species of celestials, and I don't know if they're really overseeing, but they are also abducting as well as the other groups. I get abducted by the Nordics and the Greys. Other people, I've heard Arcturians. No, not the Arcturians were separate. The Greys are with other groups. With my son, the Greys are with a wolf-like, hairy creature. So it seems like in a lot of cases, the Greys are there plus another celestial group. And so I believe there's...
I've heard about beings, they're supposed to be very dangerous, very warlike.
Which ones are that?
Wolfen ones.
Okay.
There's also a dog one, but there's a wolfen species that's supposed to be very dangerous.
Yeah, these were very passive.
Okay, species, yeah.
And they oversaw, they wanted my son to become comfortable with the surgery the Greys are doing to him. So they mimicked the surgeries on themselves so that he wouldn't be fearful of what the Greys were doing to him. There also was time travel. I can't talk too much of my son's stuff. He prefers that I not, but it overlaps into my interactions. With the Greys.
What else?
What? Try that again.
What are you getting from the interviews? What are some of the main points?
Well, that there was 7 to 9 specific groups somewhat having a connection together. One woman was explaining how the Greys have informed her how they're attacking reptilian ships. She said there's also several other celestial groups attacking the reptilian ships. I'm getting information on battles, which I'm just starting to assimilate. I don't know if they're mock battles or if they're actual battles. There's soldiers. I've been in soldiers' barracks as they're heading out to some kind of confrontation. So there's so much more than what I initially went to look for. I was initially just looking for celestial and positive or interactions with warmth, compassion, and then I was finding that with the Greys and some younger women, especially in the hybrid projects. When I listened to other women under hypnosis describe what was done to them, it was horrifying. When I listened to this younger woman describe, or these 2 younger women describe, there was total ease between the Greys, to the extent where one even handed her baby to them, her real life baby to them. There was just incredible comfort and almost companionship and trust that definitely wasn't apparent in the abductions I was involved in 75, 76, and 78. So that definitely seems like there's been a progression with the Greys. The Greys also had a tendency to overuse a lot of women's bodies repeatedly to put embryos in and take the babies out, to a lot of women's health detriment. Now the Arcturians seem to be much more lenient in that area. They don't do it at the rate the Greys are doing it at. So there's
like,
little.
How many babies can they get out of one human candidate?
God, it almost reminds me what they were doing with the MK Ultra projects. Some women are describing 7, 8, and their gynecologists finding scars of removals. I don't want to. There's some that I don't want to go with their. See, one woman felt that physically she was left devastated from the whole process for her whole life with the Greys. And she also describes her child that's with that she named with the Greys. I've been introduced to my children. As I mentioned, I was involved in 2 different hybrid projects. The Nordics involved me and the Greys involved me. The Nordic project was very different, much more done naturally, with integration, and they had rules and conditions and accepted procedures. The Greys, they were more, when they removed the sperm with you laying on a table and a device over your penis, they had their procedures. The Nordics use sexual intercourse in their hybrid programs. So those are the 2 hybrid programs I'm quite familiar with. I'm looking at some of the other hybrid programs. I have the Arcturian is the other one that I want to get more information on. So I'm keeping these people available that I'm interviewing so that I can come back to them for further information in specific areas.
I was told that they can do some things outside of the womb, get your genetic material. They can clone it, create the initial, and then they can virtually create a whole colony of offspring, not just implantation removal. So I wonder if you've heard that from other people. That's what they told me.
Yeah, I don't know what they're doing with the actual genetics. They have definitely followed, the Greys have definitely followed family lines. I don't know if I can say that about the Nordics. My mother had experiences. My sister's daughter and her, my sister's daughter and her are abductees. There's a possibility my brother's sons are. His son is. There's definitely these genetic evidence that they follow family lines.
Right. Yeah, they took my grandmother, and I'm not sure who else in my family, but they said they were very interested in my genetics, and they encouraged me to have sex with different humans because they would recover the material from my vagina, basically, and then they would use that in their hybrid program, which did not always just include one species of alien. They could mix the different DNA from many species because they were trying to create certain characteristics and qualities out of to adapt to different environments and survive in space, survive on other planets. So they're
involving other planets.
Yes, they're going to recolonize other planets.
Okay.
With my DNA offspring, which I may not recognize because they may not look human at all at the end of it.
Yeah. The babies, there's only one, I don't know what she was. She had two heads. Her child had one head. I had trouble interacting with her when I was seeing her child. A lot of the actual sexual acts we don't have memory of, and not exactly. Some we do, most we don't. So I don't know what she was, if that was her species with two heads, or if she was a freak. There was a number of dark-skinned they had me integrate with. So I was just sent to a bedroom. And all I usually would do is wake up, remembering waking up with them. One came to my house, came to my bedroom, and took me awake to her room. So I haven't seen the further breakdown of what are they actually doing? Do they need any woman to put these embryos in? Are they using the women's embryos that they're taking as well? All that stuff is very unclear. I can't quite have the perception on it.
You're going to ask next time you see them, I bet you.
I'm going to ask the Greys.
Now, it's interesting. They sometimes have you copulate. So I only had one time I had the recollection of having intercourse, and I was absolutely horrified of the whole concept of this very strange. All I remember is the penis. It's like, oh my God, you're not going to put that inside me.
Now, was that the Greys?
No, I don't know what species it was. I don't think I can describe the penis on air here, but it was not a human penis. Let me just say that.
Okay.
And I was totally grossed out.
Yeah, and I could see why. And some of the women, when we were thrown into their rooms or their beds, were not cooperative. They really didn't want to be a part of it. Some of them seemed to act like it was their duty. And then some were very compassionate. They wanted to experience it positively. And so it was interesting, all the different responses from all the different females. They ran the gamut.
Now we have a break coming up in it. I just want to ask.
What happened if they didn't want to? If they really didn't want to do it, did they have to go do it anyhow?
No, I touched one incorrectly, and she went off screaming. And there must have been a complaint because they put me under observation. So the Nordics, or this group, doesn't want aggressive sexual interaction. They want it compliant. But some of the women seemed to feel, and they called them breeders, which I thought was kind of it. When I asked the name I was given, I thought it was kind of demeanoring. So some seemed to feel devoted to it, that this is what they're supposed to do.
Right. Were these human females or extraterrestrial females?
Well, they looked human in every way. So I was confused as to if some were human. I was very confused. Some were definitely celestials, but some just seemed too human.
Yeah. Were you aroused, or was it like robotic for you?
Well, in some of them they use a gas, and the one that took me from the room woke me up and took me from the room and then into her bedroom. I'm standing there trying to make sense of what just happened because I was fully conscious during the teleportation. And then she comes up to me and sprays a spray in my face. I become very aggressive. I start ripping her clothes off, and then I have no memory. And then she returns me back to the room. I felt like I raped her. But she induced that state with the spray purposely.
Interesting.
In my early years with sexual experiences with them in adolescence, we were aroused by each other. I became involved in 2010 in the last hybrid project, and they did surgery on me to prepare me for it. They said they put new cells in my prostate. They left me in so much pain for 2 days, and I, of course, couldn't get out of bed when they did the procedures. And then it was after that they started introducing me to, or putting me in the bedrooms. My problem.
I just want to ask Matt. Hold on one second here, because
Sure.
We've got a break coming. Thomas, are we? The brakes are screwed up. We're supposed to be at 56. Or has the time changed for the break? Okay, yeah, I didn't see my Skype. Sorry. So we're on break right now.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. We have no way to do it. Okay. We'll just keep going then. I just want to make sure we're still on air. Okay. So you said that they hurt your prostate and you couldn't get. Do you have any questions or feedback on that, honey?
The first day, the night before, I kept getting visuals of surgical equipment. I knew that surgical equipment was going to be inserted up my penis. I knew what it was about, but what I kept telling myself is I was a child when they did this stuff to me. This looked like instruments that were done when I was an adolescent by a doctor. So I dismissed the visuals they kept sending me. It was that night they did the surgery on me. And then I was in pain, intense pain for several days. And when I asked them what they did, they said they put new cells in the prostate. And that was how they explained it.
that's interesting. You have that rapport with them that they will answer your questions.
Yeah, I didn't discover that. I only discovered that in the last several years, or probably the last 5 years.
Well, I think they wait for you to start asking questions. A lot of are just in shock and in reaction, but I get the impression they're very excited when they start saying, "Oh, wait a minute, what's going on here? Where am I?
Yeah,
Can you explain this to me?" So I think Sasha's right. If you ask them, more questions, you might get more answers.
Yeah, and most of the answers are coming telepathically in the daytime, which has really kind of surprised me. Because I'm not with the ones answering the questions. When I'm in the abductions, I'm with ones that are very much in the same situation I am. They know a little, but they don't know that much. They may be celestials, but they don't know the context that they're operating in. The answers I get seem to come from an administrative level.
Yeah, it's almost like I don't know the answer, but I'll get back to you, and then you could get the answer later down the road, like even days later.
Yeah, the answers could come fairly quickly, or like the hypnotist said, when I was having all this problem with my back, she said, demand for them to do surgery on your back.
Yeah.
And I didn't like demanding anything. And so what I said is that the information I have is I'm going to be living a very long life. This pain in my back is going to make me useless. If you expect me to live a long life, I need this pain rectified. They came back to me and they said in several months they may be able to do it. Then a few days, about a week before Christmas, they asked what would be the best day that the bases aren't manned. And I said Christmas. So they did me on Christmas Eve. The pain was horrendous. They removed 2 kidney stones. And for 10 years after that, my back pain was literally non-existent. And I don't know which group did it. I don't know if that was the Greys or if that was the Nordics. The Greys medicine is phenomenal.
I think you mentioned it earlier that certain groups work together. Who's working together? Let's go over that again.
I think all the groups have a similar mission. And as I talk to the people and listen to what they're telling them, that's going to get me more on that. They obviously have a great respect for genetics, and the multiple of genetics coming together. That has come up from several people I've talked to. They are looking to use our genetics to expand their genetics. At the same time, they've developed a personal relationship with humans. There's a lot of caring for those humans and emotionally what they're going through. So that's kind of what I'm catching in the interviews I'm getting, is the connection to the abductees with the celestials. And in one case, in some cases, the celestials are falling in love with the humans. And I was asked if I want to go with one of the celestials. I didn't really understand what was going on. And I said, no, I have a wife and a son. I don't want to leave. But an aspect of me was enjoying the company of this woman. And the Nordics understand the dissociative process. They understand that the conscious you in the daytime is not the same conscious you at night. So in this meeting they had, they met with the personality, the alternate that was in love with the celestial. And then they met with me to discuss the possibility of me and the celestial leaving. And then they said that all personalities are to be treated equally. No one personality is more important than the other. And so they definitely showed an awareness because they were switching our personalities in that meeting.
That's very interesting. So were you in love with the celestial and the celestial in love with you?
The celestial was in love with an alternate, another aspect of myself. And I was having awareness of her. And she was like 22, 23, and I was like 55. And she was very attractive, as they all are. And so I was intruding in on the alternate's experiences with her. And I think that's why they had that meeting to discuss if I wanted to leave with her. And so they first brought the other personality and the girl together. And then when they brought me in, she was asleep in my lap. And then they asked me if I wanted to leave, and I said no. But they didn't give me an answer. I wasn't sure if I wasn't leaving. That was the end of it, is when they asked me the question. And then they gave me the pros in the morning about all personalities being created equally. No personality is more important than the other.
So what would have happened if that subpersonality did go with the celestial?
My impression is I would have been located in another planet or another system with her. I definitely was going to be taken from Earth. They asked me, "Do you want to leave?" was their exact question.
Do you think your body would have died here on Earth?
No, they would have taken me.
So you would have just disappeared.
I just would have disappeared.
Oh my goodness. That would have been horrible for your wife and child.
I know. I felt bad for the couple that were split up, though, because they were very close.
All right. Was that a common occurrence?
I don't think it's an uncommon occurrence, because they definitely had that meeting and that interview with people. There was 5 or 6 people in the rooms. They were sitting in couches and easy chairs. It was like going to an interview. And it definitely seemed like something they have dealt with before.
So are they still seeing each other? Even though you chose not to go?
No. They ended that relationship at that time.
Okay. Wow.
They were making us, they control how we get together, I assume. So they just cut the frequencies of having us meet each other. But I believe that was the last time we met. I never saw her again.
Do you have children? Do you have children with this celestial?
I had children through, I was introduced to 5 children over the course of, the most recent was 2 or 3 years ago. And I understood that I was meeting my children. One was a 7-year-old boy that wanted to know where he came from. And it looked like, and I didn't know where we were. And his questions were, and the stress I felt with the family around him had me laughing a lot. He ended up upset. So that meeting didn't go well. Another meeting was with a young woman and her child, and they were laughing. They were so happy to see me. The woman handed the child to me. She took the pictures out that she wanted me to bring back. And that was probably the nicest encounter. And then the one with the woman with 2 heads became very frightening. And I just walked around everywhere else in the house avoiding her. There was a baby that they were having me carry around for a while. I remember how bad he stunk, so they changed him.
Change this kid's diaper, please.
All I said is, this stinks, is what I said. I woke up, I got this baby in front of me, and so I told him it stunk, and they took it and changed it and gave it back for me to they had me one time giving it walks around what looked like a college. But most cases, that baby never cried. He was unusually quiet, which I couldn't understand.
They look human, or were they like the gray human mixes? Did all the children look human?
These are all human children, Nordics. They had no gray features. I met some of the hybrid grays. I was playing with a camera, and these females were posing for me. And they looked like gray hybrids. They had hair, or some hair. Actually, their heads were thin with hair. But they looked like they were connected to the grays. And then there was the hybrid that looks identical to us with the grays, but her eyes are black. I guess they called them.
They showed you pictures. Were these pictures that were printed, or were they on an iPhone? What form were the pictures?
What?
The pictures. You said that they took pictures.
Oh, no. I saw the women, and I put pictures of them in the book. So I messed that up, of what they look like. In this house, a woman came in with a gray, and she was a hybrid. She looked dark hair. She looked just like us, except her eyes were black. The pupils, the whole eye was black.
Draw the pictures, or were these weren't photographs? These were drawn pictures.
I met them, or she came into the house.
So you got a photograph of her, or
I found a photograph that resembled her, and I put it in my book. And I tried to sketch what some of them looked like. Because I did see other celestials there was one group they introduced me to, and it definitely was not Earth. They seemed to live in a swampy area. They had a distortion in their lower part of their face. Their bodies and physique seemed very similar to us, and I was going crazy because they all had that mouth and chin distortion. It was enough so they didn't look human. But every other aspect of them looked human. At a distance from behind, they looked human until you saw their face. There was another one that was black, dark. She came from a very high gravity planet, because she took me, or I ended up at her planet a couple times, and she was about 3.5 feet tall. She spoke telepathically. Her skin was black, but it rubbed off. There was a dust that came off of her. When I ended up at her planet, I couldn't understand why I had trouble walking and standing up. And it had to do with the gravitational field on the planet. So I had a rough time getting out of a chair. And I visited her place a couple times. I could understand, she seemed to telepathic English. The one time I was connecting with her, we were talking how we were going to different classes. I'm trying to think of some of the other groups. But the majority, 90%, were the Nordics or the Greys. The other ones were rare on occasion.
let me just understand this. If she had different gravity than you, how did that affect the way you made love and stuff?
I assumed the reason she was stout and short had to do with her development on that planet. And my knees, once I was standing up, it was okay. I couldn't walk around. Getting from a seating position and straightening my knees out took a lot of effort. And so I'm assuming that was because of the gravitation on the planet. And it took me a while to figure out why I was having trouble standing up here, because I visited there several times.
So do you have any logic behind those that get selected for breeding with the Greys and those that get selected for breeding with the Nordics? Have you figured that out? Who gets selected for what and why?
Well, the Nordics seem to be interested. All the women they set me up with were basically after sperm. And so I don't know where the women came from. As I mentioned before, some seemed human, some seemed like Earthlings, some definitely weren't. They didn't speak much. They were telepathic. They seemed to understand English, but they.
Why aren't they using their own then? Did they kill them all off? Did they die? What happened to their?
The classes at night that I started going to when I was 3 and 4 seemed to be a process of acculturating our culture with their culture. Or that's how I interpret it now. They took children from Earth, they took these celestial children, and they put them together with a teacher. And so that was how the first 15 years of my life was. And I watched these celestials grow with me. As I grew up, they grew up. We sexually explored one another. We would see each other so many nights a week. So it seemed like these classes was a way of bringing these two cultures together. But there was, in one interaction I had with a celestial on Earth in her apartment, she didn't speak at all to me, and I was yelling at her. And everything that was coming from her was coming telepathically from her. And I realized that my anger wasn't appropriate. I realized that I owed her an apology. All this was coming with my interaction with her. And then I apologized to her for disrupting her party that she was having. I just found
having a and you crashed your party, or you were invited?
I was upstairs, and I came to in a bedroom upstairs. It was a small twin bed, and this very dark-skinned woman walks up to the door in a nightgown, and she asked me if I'd like to come into her room with her. And we're upstairs, and you can hear the music downstairs and so forth. So I go into the room with her, and she takes her clothes off, lays down on the bed, and I touched her vagina, which pissed her off. So she started screaming at the top of her lungs. So I got out of her room real quickly, and then that put me going downstairs into the party. Everybody was having a good time. I was pissed. I was angry. I was confused. I started screaming at everybody. I told everybody it was time to go home. And then the host came up to me, and she didn't speak to me at all. But I realized in her presence that I was wrong in disrupting her party. I owed her an apology. And so I quieted everything down, and then they teleported me out. When you misbehave, they teleport you out very fast if you do something you're not supposed to do. So they put me under observation for my behavior with a dark-skinned girl in the upstairs.
Did you ever end up having sex with her?
Not that one again.
Not that one. Okay.
Sounds like a setup to me.
Yes.
I should have been. I should have treated her with a little more respect in my interaction with her. She felt disrespected.
So, are human females getting visited by the male Nordics for intercourse?
I don't know. I deal in most of my abductions. I don't see many males. There's a military group I'm abducted by that there's males and females mixed in. They're soldiers, but I don't see many men in my abductions.
Right. So, what are they doing in the alien breeding program with women? They're not having sexual experiences like you are. Is that correct? What's happening?
This is the other thing I want to get in the interviews. I'm just starting to interview the women that are becoming impregnated in this process. It seems like most of them. How's the way to put it? It seems like, I don't know if they're programmed. No, they're not programmed. They're very interactive. They're very, I don't know. I'm trying to find the women that were involved in these in my interviews. That may have been involved in these breeding programs. And I'm finding a little on some. Most of the women that I've talked to describe that the pregnancies are short, 3 months, 4 months. I was thinking these women went full term. Maybe some of them do go full term. And it's just assumed that who they're married to, that's their child. It's all that stuff. I haven't quite got a strong perspective on.
Yes, my Chubba's got two heads. How come?
Well, it's interesting that you're documenting this. I think this is something we need to explore, the different breeding programs. Because people try to make them all the same. Oh, yeah, I've got these little gray babies. But no, there's other programs. So I was...
I was hearing about the Acturians just recently. And they didn't use 1 or 2 pregnancies on the woman that had involvement with them versus a woman with the grays having 6 to 8. So some of them program,
they would not. I would even have a missed period. They would take me when I was ovulating, and I would just have a fetus for like 2 weeks. And they took it and they grew it in an artificial environment,
so
or maybe
as quick as 2 weeks.
Oh yeah, but I wouldn't miss a period.
You made a zygote. That's all.
They just took the zygotes. They kept taking my zygotes, and so finally.
Oh, so they only took the eggs.
No. Oh, they would implant for about 2, maybe 3 weeks, a baby, full fertilized egg, and allow it to grow.
In the uterine wall?
Normal, and then they would take it. And I would get I remember being so angry. It's like, why I was never able allowed to have a child at all, be it with a husband or a lover or even an ETs. And I said, why don't you let me have one? Just one that I can raise. But they said, no, that's not your path. You're not to be doing that. And so
free birth agreement. Yeah.
I resigned. Okay. And then finally my girlfriend asked me, we were part of a UFO group over on Oahu in the 90s. And she says, I said, yeah, I know I have kids. And she turned to me and it was like she was channeling right there. And she says, now you have a whole village. Because they just kept taking them my whole life.
Yeah.
So how many eggs do you have in the course of a lifetime, right? It's like, oh my goodness. And she said it. I'm like, you're right.
So they kept your egg whole, and then they added the sperm to the egg. Oh, did they?
And so one time they showed me a child by Sasha, but he was enhanced. They genetically enhanced him, and they showed me when he was an infant, and when he was a toddler, and when he was a young adolescent, and a teen, and a young man, all in one night. They took me through time. They showed me him, and it was so interesting because this is what my child would look like, a son. Yeah. Was
it the Grays?
I don't know. I'm just suddenly being shown my child. When I'm first aware, I had this baby in my arms, and they're telling me, "This is your child with Sasha," and I was just so ecstatic. Oh, we have a child! But they were trying to be gentle with me because it's very painful to not be able to be a part of this child's life because I desperately wanted the child. But then they said, well, here, we're going to take you, through time, and you'll see this child. So we were not limited to that moment. But I was showing him all the way up till he was a young adult.
Wow. That's pretty good. It was kind of them.
I did say that was very kind of you. Thank you very much. I learned how to interact with them. And this is for anybody listening. If you're aware that you're having encounters, if you can try to condition yourself not to freak out, you'll get more and more and more information.
Yeah.
I'm at the point they can stand in broad daylight in my bedroom, and I can have a conversation with them. I'll usually sense somebody looking at me, staring at me, and I'll turn around and go, "Oh, hi." And I'll have these conversations with them. Now, the next level, I would like you to let Sasha come in and witness it. But it seems like when I'm having some engagement, they're blocking him from even walking into the room.
Okay. Yeah, it was.
My witness.
They did a few interesting things with my wife, even though she really wasn't an abductee. They brought several female guests into my bed and I assumed they removed my wife. I don't know where she was. But the thing that was happening with these women is they just being near them, drugged me out. And I think it had to do with the frequency they came in on. It made my brain very strange, disoriented, like I'm on a lot of Valium. And then as they moved away from me, my head cleared up. So that's what I was blaming on the electrical, which I think keeps the other people. I've talked to so many abductees that their spouses are sleeping right through it. And I think it's that electromagnetic frequency that keeps the spouses asleep.
Wow, the Quaalude girls.
Yeah. Well, they told me when I asked, they said, well, we don't want to create any harm. So if you're too excited, you could damage your heart. You could physically get damaged. In the early years, they would walk past a guard in the facility, and they would literally drop them dead. So they're very cautious now and not amping you up too much so that you'll leave your body body and not be able to be alive. So that's what they explained to me. They said they are delighted when a human can learn how to relax around them and be totally okay with them. And I don't know how I learned it. It was just I've been doing this 60 years, so you
can practice with your dog.
No, that's definitely the direction I'm trying to go now, is what you're describing. Not to be overwhelmed, become more focused, and definitely more interactive. Sometimes, but usually I'm with some celestial that's in kind of my same situation with them. He doesn't know what's going on, she doesn't know what's going on. She's just doing as she's directed. So she has no information. And then it's like, what do you ask her? Who are you? Where are you from?
What do you like to be appreciated for? Tell me what you like to be appreciated for.
Yeah. So it was it's like, what question? Where are you from? Does she know? Does she know that she's on Earth? Does she know? So it's kind of been difficult, but I'm working more and more. And as I get them to tell me the places they're in, that's helping me get that focus.
Yeah. Yes. There's going to be a pattern that emerges. That's what I see.
So years ago, Whitney Stryber wrote a book called The Secret School. And it sounds like you're learning how to relax. So when he was in upstate New York, and he had his cabin, very famous cabin that they did that movie in that location, where it's supposed to be that cabin. He said that they have like a bedroom up in the loft, and he would become aware that there was somebody, some ET in his living room down below. And so he started coming down the steps. And he would start to come down the steps, and he would get freaked out and go back up to his bed and jump in bed with his wife. I mean, that actually, over time, he got more and more comfortable. He got further and further down the step, and then eventually was able to go down into the living room. And the being was in lotus and meditation, and he would go over and sit opposite him and go into meditation as well. So he eventually relaxed enough to do it. So I think that's our goal. They would like us to be able to relax and just sit down and stay with them, just interact with them.
Yeah, that makes definite sense. I've been to parties they've had, and some ceremonies they've had. There was one that was somewhat sexist. I don't know. They were tying the women up on these poles. And we were all, it must have been a tradition from a culture of some sort. And we were supposed to talk to the women and untie them. And they're having feast, they're having food, but of course I can't eat. They'll never let us eat. And my friends had fights with them as they take her food away. She's gone off. She's gone a lot. Throwing things, smashing things. And they take us away when we start to misbehave pretty quickly.
You must be on your best behavior.
Yeah, like they don't like physical threatening. They don't like anything that's towards physical assault or physically threatening somebody or striking somebody. Right. I've accidentally struck people and I've been sent right to my bed real fast.
What about yelling?
Yeah. I think they got used to that. I've done a lot of yelling.
I remember yelling at him too. I remember waking up. This is when I was in my 30s. And they kept taking the babies, and I'd wake up and I couldn't talk to that husband about this at all. But I would go, "Oh my God, I've been yelling all night. I was so mad at them. I was putting them off. You can't treat me like that, you know." And so that I spent most of my 20s and 30s yelling at them. Why are you doing that? I think they got it. They knew I was going to hurt them, and I was angry because they weren't treating. I remember one night I went to bed. I said, "Stop taking me without giving me proof. You must give me proof." So the next morning, I woke up with these giant V-shaped scratches on my back, and I'm being dressed to go to work in the office. And back then, we had to wear pantyhose and heels. And my husband's, he sees my back. I don't even know it's there. He goes, "What in the world happened to your back?" I go, "I don't know what." So he brought me a mirror, and there were these deep scratches. And I just, he wasn't into that at all. And I said, nothing. He didn't know I had ordered them to give me proof. So I think they were the reptilians. But, they could have killed me. That's one thing. We're still here. They take us and they return us. They take us and return us.
So have you had involvement with the reptilians?
Apparently, yeah. No, I had some 3D contact with the reptilians from age 4 to about 12, where they would come through a portal in my neighbor's backyard as I was walking down the alley. So I would have these fights with them. And what I pieced together over time is that the reptilian telepathy is so powerful, it feels like they're trying to suck your soul out of your crown chakras, your third eye and crown chakra. And I had a very adverse reaction. I get terrified. I would start going into the high cardiac reaction response, fight or flight bird. So finally, when I was writing my book, which I haven't gotten out yet, I'm still working on it, he came back, not physically, but interdimensionally, and said, and apologized. He said, "I'm so sorry I scared you. We never intend to hurt you." It was a reptilian, and he wore a robe, full head to foot robe with a hood, and he's often mistaken for the Grim Reaper character that we see.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, here comes death. So
I had one experience.
Seen him, but that was in full daylight. I mean, it was not because I've had experiences since I was born. So I came in at this other level. So I guess he thought I could handle it. But when you get into the veil, you think you're human. You really think you're human, right, all the way, and you forget that you have this sub-personality, like you're saying, that goes on board ship. I've been to different like management council meetings making decisions, and I'm not the only one. I get a lot of the what do we call those, the ambassador level. So I've encountered a lot of ET ambassadors, and they'll be on board ship, and they'll be in their other form, their extraterrestrial form. They come down here to have their human form, and up there they might be the captain of the ship, right?
Yeah, I've heard abductees describing exactly, especially a woman I was talking to in California. She was doing the classes on the ships, and she was asking if I was doing any of the classes. I said, "No, I go to them, I don't remember them, and then I leave them." But
I remember teaching a class with, like a huge auditorium. As far as you could see, there were students, and I was teaching them how to levitate. I was teaching a levitation class. And I realized that I was there, and I go, "Wait a minute, I'm not in the audience, I'm teaching." I guess I know how to do this.
Do you remember what you were teaching?
Levitation.
Okay. You're teaching levitation. Do you remember the specifics of what you were teaching with the levitation?
What did you say?
It wasn't verbal. It was. It's in your third eye chakra. It's in one of your chakras. So I was projecting the image. It was all telepathic. I was teaching telepathically what you need to do with your body and mind soul connection to
What do you need to do?
I don't
tell
know.
us.
I don't know. You go like, did you get that?
No, I just thought you knew a little bit more.
No, they block it because, I'm a human, right? Humans don't know how to levitate. So I'll confess it here. This is so weird. When I was really, really tiny, I was levitating and flying around the room. And my mother came in, would freak out and scream and yell, and then she would try to kill me. So they had to, back off that memory and that ability because I was going to get killed and they needed me to stay alive. And then I repressed that for years. And then I was at a conference in the early 2000s, and this kid goes up to the mic and tells about his story that he was levitating when he was a toddler at the orphanage, right? And finally the nuns kept chasing him down and pulled him down, and they beat him so he would stop levitating. And so he said, does anybody else levitating? Am I crazy? Did I really levitate? He said, if you did, beat me back by the clock. So at the break, I go back to the clock because I remembered it, and there was like 13 people. And then we all went, what? You levitated too? You remember levitating too? And usually people who come in and they levitate, whoever's in their lives, their parents or somebody that's older, smacks them down. Cause,
I had levitation abductions where I went into abductions and I was levitating in rooms. And I had them, they were teaching me methods of levitation. And I don't think they work in this dimension. They
don't work for long. I think they burn you on the stake if you levitate on Earth.
I told you when I had this great notion, I figured out how to levitate. And instead of saying Shazam like Captain Marvel did, you just had to go Mazachs, say it backwards. And I jumped out the window and I fell flat on the ground. It didn't work.
It
was strange. They had this feather or this thing you put in your hand that carried you. They had different devices that allowed you to fly in different ways. It seemed in different places to fly.
Wow.
Well, there's kind of transportation. I'll be in a few cities at night at my other job, my other whatever, and I have to get across town, which is a big town like New York City. And I can move, but I'm moving really fast, and I can go and slow down. So
Is
I can
it
go
in
down.
your shoes?
I don't know if it's in my shoes or if it's just I know how to do it, but it seems like I'm making some kind of motion that I'm walking, but I'm just zooming everywhere, and I'm not in the air flying. I'm going through the streets and
erect, standing up.
Yeah. I can slow down. Oh, I want to see that. I go past the bazaar, like there's a place where everybody's selling foods and there's no money. They're happy if you take their reward is you were able to give away whatever it was, food or jewelry or whatever item they had made, and that was their payment. They gave you something and you appreciated it. Very different worlds than here.
Oh, definitely. Of these worlds.
Different. There's no communism or socialism or none of these political systems on these planets. Everything flows so smoothly. And that was one of the classes I was in. Well, we want you to introduce new systems on the Earth. So a lot of my time
I was impressed with the economic system I saw, the Nordics.
Tell me about that.
And everybody worked together. There was no marriage. The children were taken care of. People stayed together for periods of time. It really reminded me of absence of the strong Christian aspects. Sexuality was something allowed for. There was no sins around sexuality. The body wasn't looked at as how many times I end up teleported without clothes on. they didn't seem to act like it was any different than if I had clothes on. I was embarrassed, of course. It was a very different. And then the co-ed bathrooms were throwing me off.
Did they give you some clothes or something?
Sometimes, the one time I ended up in that house screaming at the party to end the party on, all I had was the T-shirt I went to bed with on. And when I discovered that was all I had on, I was even more embarrassed. I don't know the clothing situation. They did a quick teleportation for me to see this particular person that I actually work with. They wanted me to see her for some reason. It was a 10-minute trip. And I ended up at a table. All my clothes were on wrong. Underwear was on top of the jeans. So it made me understand. I don't know how I end up in the clothes that I end up in, but that time they weren't put on correctly. There's things in the pockets. There's so at some point we get dressed, and then other points they don't dress us. I haven't figured the clothing thing out.
Oh, that's cool. I haven't had the clothing screw up that I remember.
What?
But I've heard of other people. And sometimes they return you outside.
Yeah.
My mother caught me going out the door, but I think I was coming back in.
Yeah, that was happening early on. And I heard a lot of people describing this. And we would actually walk through the door to a location. We'd walk through the side of the house to a location they would pick us up at. And then I remember walking back from those locations, back into the house to my bed. That must have been one of the ones where they had me split.
One time they returned me in Avalon Park. It was our park. And I'm down there in the middle of the night in the parking lot, and I can feel the air on me. And I said, "Hey, I'm in the park. This isn't right." And as soon as I told them, they went up and they dropped me off at my front door. But my mother came down, and I guess I was trying to get in, or I don't know. She said, "What are you doing?"
Yeah, sleepwalking has come up on some people I've interviewed.
But I was out, yeah. I would go out all the time, though. Like, I would go underground. I would go down under my house, and there was a portal that I could access, and I would go to the inner earth, to the different cities down there. Very beautiful places.
Wow.
That was most of my childhood. I would fly some nights all night long and have a great time. But then other times I was going underground. So I remember going past these huge bats that were like the size of a room. That was the size of a room on the sides, and they had these, the handles. There's no human that could. I mean, it was a giant, probably for a 30-foot beast or being, right?
Are you saying bats or bats?
BATS, and they were dripping, and they were wooden, highly polished wood.
Great big barrels.
Barrels, and I didn't know dripping. I had a thought this is dripping wine or dripping beer, but then I thought maybe it's dripping blood. I don't know. And I touched it one time. I was walking through it, and it was like a river of this stuff and a stream, and you could see, but there's no visible light source. And I said, I'm going to touch this, and it was sticky. I went, oh my God, I'm here. I'm really here. This is sticky. Nobody else encountered that. That was my entire childhood. It drove me crazy. Is anybody else having this experience? what's going on? And I don't remember what happened in the middle there. I remember coming and going, but so yeah, we need to do some hypnosis on that, honey. I want to remember where I was. What was going on?
Now they take me right from the room, even right from the bed. This is what I hope the camera will show better. The new system.
Oh, good. Is anybody else doing this camera stuff like you are that you're aware of? Anybody else trying to catch? I know
a woman sent me a picture of a little man looking like the Joker on the back of a cards, standing at the foot of her bed. She's the only, and then
wow.
And then another picture. It seemed like she was in the bed with a baby, and then the baby was gone in the other picture. And she was from New Mexico. I haven't seen many people do much with photography. And I'm trying to find somebody who's, I heard, I've been trying to find somebody that would able to help me continue with what I'm doing with photography. But I'm finding the security cameras is basically the only method. Because I think if you had a person sitting in that room holding a camera, he'd pass out when that EMF, that electrical stuff came into the room.
Yeah. They always zap them out. One time I was fully awake and Sasha was there. They knocked him out, and then I couldn't get back to sleep. So when I tried to wake him periodically, it was hours. It must have been like 4 or 5 hours. I couldn't sleep, so I just kind of meditated and waited for the sun to come up. And then when he woke up normally, no recollection, nothing. I couldn't wake him for anything.
I had an experience which I don't know what it was. I woke up with a child in the bed. And she was in this little pink nightgown, and I was trying to figure out how real she was. And so I lifted her up. She had weight. So then I said, okay, I'm going to wake my wife up for this one. So I wake my wife up, get her to sit up, hand her the little child. She hands the little child back to me, goes back to sleep, and of course has no memory. Where the child came from, the child was talking about how she was killed by her father. And
wow.
And it was explained to me by the professor I was working with that for a short period after death, we can take physical solid form. And that child was in that process of how she ended up in that room, I don't know. How she ended up in the bed with me, I don't know. But she was talking about how she was killed and how her father hurt her. And then he killed himself, I guess.
Well, there's a crossover with Ghost and ET. So I thought Ghost all my childhood, and I've interacted with Ghost all my life.
Yeah,
dead. Come to me. That's the whole show.
That seems to go with a lot of abductees. The lines between the spiritual telepathy and the ETs crisscross all the time. I found when I was working with the psychic development groups, the fastest developers in psychic abilities were the abductees. And if they weren't, they outperformed everybody. But all the top psychics in the group that I was working with were all abductees or had experiences with celestials.
Well, do you think, what's the chicken or the egg? Do you think that they were already psychic, that's why the ETs took them, or did they become psychic after being taken?
I think they became psychic because of the telepathic that they learned from infancy, probably, and And once you develop the telepathic ability, you basically open the whole door, it seems.
I think we're going to be going to the end of the show in 1 minute, so I want to make sure you tell everybody how they can contact you, and maybe there's some people who want to be part of your interview project.
Yeah, I'm at khop53@outlook.com, and I'm looking to speak with as many people going through these experiences and hear their perspectives on what they're experiencing. Also, I'm very interested in people's experiences, abductees, visuals that they get, specifics and information they get from the celestials, all the aspects. And of course, I'm also very interested in the hybrid projects of the different celestials. And so anybody that is willing to speak or share, the best method of initial contact would be through my email of khop53@outlook.com.
And I have that up on Ken's aquarianradio.com page. And Ken, I want you to I look at it after the show. I'll send me anything that you want me to add to that show. If you need to contact Ken, you forgot the email, it's on there, but you can always write to me at aquarianradio@gmail.com, and I'll make sure that you get through to Ken.
Take a look at the pictures.
Yeah, and the pictures are there. And then you have a book that's available on Lulu. I think I put the link for that there. And you're writing another book, right, Ken?
Yeah, I'm working on the first book was kind of on a discovery, and I met a brilliant professor, designer. He designed many houses. He architect. He's just a brilliant man. He was involved with German intelligence and with the American translating of what became the CIA documents, the FBI documents, because they took the Germans' organizations from the SS and German intelligence into the U.S. intelligence system, and he was involved in that.
I think that's